play strong.
A big hello and good evening. I am Sonali Krishna and we're getting you a special show today called BCCI Stumped. Now, just to get you up to speed, the Supreme Court today toughened its stance on the BCCI by completely cutting off its financial powers. The order clearly states that none of the board's member state associations will get a single rupee from the apex cricket body till they comply in letter and spirit with the Justice Lodha committee reforms. The judgment has asked the committee to fix a ceiling limit for contracts the BCCI can enter into, and contracts beyond this financial limit would require the panel's approval. It also asked the committee to appoint an independent auditor to scrutinize the BCCI accounts and fix these financial limits for contracts. The court has ordered the BCCI secretary and president to file compliance reports before the committee and the Supreme Court in 2 weeks. Now, to discuss, debate and deliberate on the same, I'm joined by a very august panel. I'm joined by Saad Bin Jung, former Indian cricketer, Kishore Bimani, veteran sports journalist, Ameet Nayak, founder and managing partner, Nayak and Company Advocates, and Aditya Verma, secretary of the Cricket Association of Bihar and also the petitioner of this case against the BCCI. Now, thank you so much, firstly, gentlemen, for joining me this evening. It's clear that the Supreme Court is not budging this time round, but the larger question that I'm looking to address today is that, is this a judicial outreach and a judicial overreach? So let me first get in the petitioner of the case, Aditya Verma, to really answer that question. Mr. Verma, आपको लगता है कि आज जो BCCI, जो Supreme Court का decision है, वो was it fair and is it right to be freezing all the assets?
डिसीजन तो एकदम बराबर है, क्योंकि ये अपने खजाने के बल पे लगातार सुप्रीम कोर्ट के दिशा निर्देश बोलिए, आदेश बोलिए, जस्टिस लोढ़ा कमीशन का रिकमेंडेशन बोलिए, ये अनर्गल रोज स्टेटमेंट आ रहा था बोर्ड के तरफ से, प्रेसिडेंट के तरफ से, सेक्रेटरी के तरफ से, जो ये देश के जुडिशरी सिस्टम पर एक क्वेश्चन मार्क लगा दिया था कि क्या इस देश में बीसीसीआई का कानून सुप्रीम कोर्ट से ऊपर का कानून है। तो आज देखिए, आज सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने इनके खजाने पे ताला लगा के चाबी जस्टिस लोढ़ा कमीशन के हाथ में पकड़ा दिया है। अब इनको तो रिफॉर्म्स लागू करना ही है, लेकिन मुझे तरस आ रही है, मुझे तकलीफ हो रही है, मुझे दुख हो रही है कि ऐसे लोग बोर्ड में बैठे हुए हैं जो बोर्ड को अपनी निजी दुकान बना के चला रहे हैं।
Thank you, Mr. Verma. But let me just get in the veteran sports journalist, Mr. Bimani, on the same. If you could address the question saying, given all that the Supreme Court has done till now, do you actually look at this as a judicial overreach?
A very simple answer, Sonali. This is not judicial overreach. Very simply, it had to come. If you are going to investigate the affairs of the BCCI, if you are going to put a cap on corruption, on conflict of interest, on all those things, the only way to do it is by shutting off the financial tap. We've seen year after year, the presidents in power, they exercise extreme power by their purse strings. It's the money that allows them to do so. And I think Justice Lodha and the Honorable Supreme Court have their fingers on the pulse by saying that that is where we start. Now, if you call it judicial overreach, I'd like to suggest that if you are going to investigate, if you're going to take punitive measures, you might as well take punitive measures in the areas that count. It's no point suspending one person, the next person will come along. It's no point saying you can't be chairman, he'll be managing director or something else. Now, we have seen this whole trouble begin because of IPL. Now, what was wrong with IPL? The fact that it is a super monster. It's a huge money game. Now, because of this, we got people like Gurunath Mayappan. Because of this, we got some of the conflicts of interest. Now, this is where we come down to the answer of the moot question. Is it judicial overreach? No. If it's judicial overreach, then the whole affair of investigation into BCCI is judicial overreach. This is putting the fingers on the pulse to try to stop the main source of the main fountainhead of corruption.
Okay, fair enough. Let me get in the former Indian cricketer, Mr. Jung. Two questions really. First, I want you to, tell me if you're, in consensus with what, Mr. Bimani and Mr. Verma, the petitioner, are saying. Do you think it's absolutely fine? And secondly, why is it that, they're giving the BCCI and the top brass so many chances? Why aren't they just coming out with a final order?
Well, the first thing is, of course, that I'm extremely proud to be on the show with a person like Verma, who's taken all the pressure that I'm sure must have been heaped on him by the BCCI and still stood by for what he thinks is right. Well done, Mr. Verma. Hats off to you. As far as what Mr. Bimani says, well, I completely agree what he says, like I always do. I'm not going to repeat what he said. Now, as far as the judicial overreach is concerned, or as far as the BCCI is concerned, or as far as the courts are concerned, with putting this society in order, yes, there is a precedent that is going to be established at a very vast level, which has not been done before with a society of this kind, with a society of this caliber. Now, listen, you've got to understand what the courts have done right from the beginning to the end. The courts have actually told the state government that this is a monopoly, please look into it. The state government has not even bothered to spend a second on it, because we know why. Because there are politicians involved, and the court knows that that they were not going to do anything about this incredible monopoly, because the monopoly always sits on top of the law. It always believes it's above the law. So now, there's a monopoly which is at work, which the Supreme Court has already pointed out, which the politicians and the government have done absolutely nothing about. Now comes the issue of there's a law which is called piercing the corporate veil. And the courts always use the law of piercing the corporate veil when they understand that the people, the administrators within the system, the directors in a company, or in this instance, I suppose the committee members, when they start getting part of, when they get completely immersed in sleaze and scandal, and at every level, at the level of the state associations, at the level of the BCCI, like Kishore was saying, and then what happens? And then the court has to intervene and use this law, which is a legal law available to, I think, everywhere in the world it's used. Then they start going into the system in order to put the system right. Now, they're not against Thakur. They have absolutely nothing personal against Thakur or the secretary or anyone else. They're not against any of the 5 selectors who are going to be removed in place of 3. Now, they've done that because, again, there is a personal issue of the quota system. They need to break the back of the quota system. So what the court is doing, and it's doing it very slowly, and the wheel is really grinding very, very fine. What they're doing is they're putting in order a situation by controlling the accounts now. That, okay, fine, we need to know what you're looking at. The moment the court starts looking at the accounts, I can tell you at least 20 people are going to go to jail, because I know that the ACB has not been working on the cases because of political pressures. Now, when that political control is off the head and the ACB actually investigates the cases that it has, I can assure you a lot of test players are going to go to jail. Now, all this information is available with the Justice Lodha Committee. The way the cricket has fallen at the state level, not only at the state level, there was a sting operation done in Hyderabad on the clubs. The club owners are charging money, for heaven's sake, for giving players opening batting and bowling, for giving players 20 overs. So it's not a question of talent now, it's a question of who has the money, from the top to the bottom. So the whole game's been compromised, and it is not an overreach, it is well within the jurisdiction of the court.
Point noted, point noted. Let me get in the legal view here, let me get in Ameet Nayak, and let me first ask him whether, in his opinion, is this a judicial overreach, and secondly, does BCCI, by legal definition, does it become a public body? Does it become a private body? And hence, can you get in so deeply into the system if it's a private body?
Yeah. So I'll deal with your second question first, Sonali. First of all, in Netaji's case and the earlier cases also, it's very clear that it's a public function that the BCCI is discharging, because there are hundreds and millions of fans, and therefore it was always concluded prior to this entire issue of Aditya Verma that the Supreme Court or the High Courts had jurisdiction, and they were amenable to writ jurisdiction. Therefore, there is no question about that. Now, on your judicial overreach question, what is very important to understand is, today, nothing, no business, no game can be above the court of law, particularly the Supreme Court and our Constitution. That is sacred. As far as this entire episode is concerned, it's going on for more than 2 years. We started this battle long back in the Bombay High Court, and see where it's led to for cleansing the game of cricket. On 17th of October, you had one of the finest judges of the Supreme Court today sitting, with Justice Khanvilkar, Justice Chandrachud and our Chief Justice, recording the observations where Lodha committee had given enough time and opportunity for BCCI to fall in line. You can't be so brazen about it. Nobody is above the law. You can't defy the law. There can't be a tug of war. This is a case of tug of war. Where is the question of judicial overreach? Enough opportunities were given. And therefore this, like Mr. Bimani said and Mr. Jung said, this was inevitable. This is, according to me, something that was expected and was in the offing because they didn't fall in line. There was enough opportunity given. So the question of judicial overreach does not arise because you have to respect no business and game can be above the law of this country and our constitution, particularly the Supreme Court. And I'm telling you, even the judges that have heard the matter today, Justice Nageshwar Rao, the Chief Justice and Justice Chandrachud, one of the finest judges of the Supreme Court today, there is a question of judicial overreach. What is important is, why has BCCI taken such a brazen approach?
You tell me one thing.
To take such a brazen approach. This was all about cleansing the cricket.
Yeah, Ameet, 1 second. Just tell me one thing. Why is it that they're stalling the final order? And as per your own claims, it's been going on for now over 2 years. Why are they giving the body so many chances? Why aren't they giving us their final order?
No, because you see, there were so many associations that had filed petitions and filed applications when this matter was being heard. This matter was concluded. So it's not fair to the Supreme Court because ultimately the Supreme Court has to be just and equitable. You had every cricket association raising an issue in the Supreme Court. Do you know how many cricket associations were heard by the Honorable Chief Justice and the other judges of the court? So everybody was given an opportunity, after which 17th of October as an event happened. So according to me, nobody was given a long rope. Everybody was given equitable time and justice was done in this matter, and ultimately the plug had to be pulled off because of the brazen approach. You had Justice Lodha, one of the finest judges of the court, actually giving them chances prior to this entire issue being raised. So therefore, I don't see any judicial overreach at all, and in fact this was inevitable, and I salute the Supreme Court for what they have done.
I get your point that you don't look at this as a judicial overreach. I get your point. Ameet, I get your point. My question is, are you looking at this? Why is the Supreme Court not passing their order? If you're saying that they have not responded to the Supreme Court, to Lodha committee, requests time and time again, and they've been arrogant about it, then why not proceed and give the final order? Why are they stalling this, giving them a date after date after date?
But they will. Look, ultimately, as far as cricket is concerned, it is hundreds and millions of people in this country. As far as the Supreme Court is concerned, the Supreme Court, I'm sure, is conscious about all of that. Nobody has been given a long rope. Even if it's eventually going to happen, it will happen. There is no legal bar for the Supreme Court to give time and hear everybody judiciously and expeditiously and pass an order. You're right in raising that question, but I'm sure the Supreme Court will do that. But why isn't BCCI, the question that you should be asking me is, why is BCCI not falling in line? Rather than saying that why is Supreme Court not passing its final order? Supreme Court has given enough time. In fact, this judgment which is there has been there for a long time, more than a year back. So where is the question when for BCCI not to fall in line?
Let me just get in Mr. Bimani and Mr. Jung to ask you a question, saying, on another note completely, how do you think, what is currently going on with the BCCI, with the Lodha committee, with the Supreme Court, how do you think India's cricket is being perceived by international cricket today? What kind of a hit do you think Indian cricket will have, if at all? And also, the third question being, how do you think revenues for cricket will be impacted in the short, medium and long term?
Sonali, may I answer that?
Sure.
One of the things I wanted to say, what Mr. Nayak said was very relevant.
Yeah, please. Yeah.
That today, the important thing is why the BCCI is being given rope. When the history of this whole murky affair is written, it will be said that BCCI had every chance to mend their ways. Why the court is giving them so much chance is because I had personal interaction with Justice Mudgal. I had personal interaction with the Lodha Commission and on several times, and I really believe that their justices, in their wisdom, they love the game, they really love cricket, and their attitude was those of hurt people who want to set things right. Cricket is a huge game. A murder committed, okay, it concerns the murderer and the family and so on. This concerns 100 million people. It concerns hundreds of millions of people round in India and round the world. And today, I think, when it is written, it will be said that the Supreme Court was extra fair. Why did these gentlemen not do anything about it? Secondly, you say how India is perceived. May I very respectfully say, I've just come back from England. I was mixing with a lot of cricketing people, and they are very hurt. Why should it be that the Board of Control for Cricket in India, I wish they were just called Cricket Board, is today doing things which are so strange. They are not in favor of cricket. They are not improving the game. So they are hurt that this should happen. India is perceived as perhaps the leader of international cricket, perhaps the country that takes the lead, and therefore should do everything right. No, they are very hurt. I don't think this is disgraceful. I think what they have done is very short-sighted and motivated by the fact that they've got three great politicians at the helm of affairs, Mr. Pawar, the gentleman himself, Sir Thakur, and not to speak of Mr. Rajiv Shukla. Now, they should be thinking that let us do something that merits that benefits the people, not of sheer arrogance. And I really think that when it is not a bad thing for BCCI Supreme Court to do what they are doing.
Mr. Jung, if I can get you in to talk about, international perception of Indian cricket now, given the kind of mess we found ourselves in.
Sonali, well, to answer that question, let me first start with what the international community is seeing if they're following this particular judgment. What did the Supreme Court say earlier? They said right in the beginning, like Amit was saying, at that time when we started this issue, and I remember we were there in the media when this was going on, the Supreme Court opined that we must follow the spirit of the game. And I think that spirit of the law, the spirit of the game, they're also bringing it into the law, and they're giving every opportunity for the BCCI to actually amend its ways. So in the end of when the time does come for the order, and I think, and I'm going to put my, I think I'm going to step out of line a little over here, by saying that the Supreme Court is being so fair, to answer your question, that in the interim between now and December, I think one of the Chief Justices is retiring, and he does not want it on his head that when the order came, it was him. He wants the other Chief Justice to come in and give the final nail to the coffin. That is the extent that the Supreme Court is doing in order to be fair to this horrible thing called the monopoly of Indian cricket. Now, one more thing, Sonali, I'd like to bring to your point here, that there are so many issues that are being put to the Supreme Court which are not the realm of the Supreme Court. And this is the failure of our democracy. This is the failure of our politicians. The issue with how to handle societies, the issue with water sharing, the issue with forest management, what is core zone, what is tourism zone. None of this should be coming to the realm of the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court has put up a CEC, which I believe is a draconian body, and I agree with what you're saying. That far exceeds its limits, that it should not be there. But when it comes to something like Amit was saying, a body like the BCCI, where for heaven's sake, the corruption is rampant from the top to the bottom, this law, which permits them to go right into the corporate veil, break the corporate veil and go in, actually forces them to look into the society and set up a precedent where such things will not happen, Sonali. It is so fair that hats off to the judges.
Fair enough, but what is the fate of Indian cricket going forward? Whatever said and done, not to say that I'm on BCCI's side, but I mean, let's accept it that, the BCCI however they ran their shop. The fact of the matter is Indian cricket internationally has got some stature. They've gotten a lot of moolah, by whatever means, but they got it in. And cricket was being run as a successful venture, corruption aside. I'm saying, what is the fate of Indian cricket in terms of people who are going to be, the new people who are going to come in to sit on top and run this organization? We can't have the government run it because, it won't be run as a commercial unit then. So do you see the reign of Indian cricket's supremacy somewhat being diluted because of the going on right now? Mr. Bimani?
Amit, let me just take
this is voluntary non-fit injury. This has come about. I'm sorry, sir.
One word.
Okay. I can have only one of you speak.
The point is, you're asking about the government. Now, government running an organization is always very iffy. The point is, what the justices want to do, what the Supreme Court wants to do, is to allow people to continue, but under a new guideline. What they're trying to do is not to throw them out and run it themselves. If they would, then it would become like Air India. I hope that doesn't happen.
So the committee very clearly states that if you've actually been in power for 9 years, then you can no longer be part. You can't be part of the top brass. And if you look at all those people, at the top, all of them technically by that rule get disqualified.
No, but why not? Today, we have to have people.
Yeah, that is not in contention at all. I'm not debating that. I'm saying if you're going to have a fresh set of management running this institution, what will be the fate of Indian cricket in the medium to long term? How do you see it pan out? Do you see a dilution of the Indian cricket brand? Mr. Jung, yeah?
Sonali.
Not at all, not at all, not at all. I think that today
new
people
Sonali,
will come
listen, I think the Supreme, one second, Kishore, let me take this.
One second.
Kishore, let me take this. Kishore, can I take this?
Sure. Mr. Jung, go ahead.
Kishore.
Go ahead.
Okay, thanks Kishore, sorry about that. All right. No, Sonali, I think you've hit upon something really important. Yes, we, for heaven's sake, we today are the #1 test country in the world. We are certainly doing something right. It's not that the board is not doing a lot of things. A lot of things that the board is doing is absolutely right. And that is exactly the reason why the Supreme Court has given them the time, saying that, yes, we also appreciate the good work you're doing. We believe you can change it. We also accept that change is going to be very difficult for you, especially if you're a politician, especially if you're a son of a chief minister. Change is going to be impossible for you, but we want to give you time because, yes, we also appreciate the good work you're doing. So that's a very good point that you've raised, Sonali.
Fair enough. Let me just go to Mr. Verma and ask him, Mr. Verma, आपको लगता है कि there will be a reshuffle at the top brass को निकाल देंगे Supreme Court finally, क्योंकि according to the Lodha committee जो उनके reform उनके suggestions है, none of the top brass members qualify for it. आपको क्या लगता है? Will there be a shake up at the top brass?
अगर आप जस्टिस लोढ़ा कमीशन के रिकमेंडेशन को देखी हैं तो उस रिकमेंडेशन में क्लियर कट लिखा हुआ है कि जो भी बंदा 9 इयर्स से ज़्यादा स्टेट क्रिकेट में या बोर्ड में काम कर चुका है वो उसकी स्टोरी ख़त्म हो चुकी है, बंद हो चुकी है। तो आज जो बीसीसीआई इतना हाय तौबा मचा रहा है, आप टॉप ब्रास की बात कीजिए तो टॉप ब्रास में आपके प्रेसिडेंट हिमाचल क्रिकेट एसोसिएशन के अध्यक्ष हैं 16 साल से। आप सेक्रेटरी को आइए, वो महाराष्ट्र के अध्यक्ष हैं पिछले 10 साल से। आप ज्वाइंट सेक्रेटरी रिटायर्ड आईपीएस ऑफिसर वीआरएस लिया हुआ है। द मोस्ट फ्रॉड एंड करप्ट पर्सन वो 16 साल से झारखंड का अध्यक्ष बन के बैठा हुआ है। अब ट्रेजरर की बात कीजिए, वो हरियाणा में 10 साल से ऊपर से। तो जब रिकमेंडेशन इंप्लीमेंट होगा तो ये टॉप ब्रास क्या ये खुद ब खुद सब अलग हो जाएंगे।
So I think Mr. Verma was very clear on the rules of the Lodha committee, recommendations. Which brings me to my last and final question. While it's all very well that we're seeing finally a massive, a shake-up and a shake-out, so to speak, with the BCCI and there's a serious cleanup act going on. My only question is, do you think the government and the Lodha committee jointly are in a position to reinstate this organization to ensure that we retain our cricketing power? I'll allow you to, Ameet, for you to come in, and then I'll go to the rest of the panel.
Right. So, look, there is no question of government interference. That is not what the Supreme Court intends to do. Mr. Verma was absolutely correct that ultimately all that the Lodha committee has done is given guidelines. I don't see that the BCCI is going to become defunct. In fact, Justice Thakur in his judgment in the first few paragraphs has said why change is relevant in evolution for any business and for any successful democracy. So we are talking about a change which is an evolution for evolution of cricket. So I don't see any problem at all. I don't see any government interference. I think you will have new people, you will have fresh blood, you will have lesser amount of corruption, and that was the end and intent. From Netaji's case to now, we've only tried to see that there is cleansing of cricket. That is the objective. So I don't see that there is, and look, this is voluntary non-fit injury as far as BCCI is concerned, because they volunteered themselves into this problem. Why can't they fall in line? Guidelines will follow and new people will come in. Where is the question of BCCI becoming defunct? Nothing is going to happen to cricket. The game is big. That's what the courts have said time and again. The game is really big. The courts are bigger and the law is the law of the land. So I don't see that the change and the evolution and the change is going to do any catastrophe. In fact, it's going to only improve things for cricket and the fans, of course.
Advertising dollars for the game.
Well, look, why are you saying that? The game is popular. Look, Sonali, as far as the image internationally is concerned, I think my colleagues have really answered it well. As far as revenue, this game is big. It is religion in this country. I think we are talking about cleansing it and not misguiding the fans. I don't see anything is going to get impacted. You are presuming that any interference on following the guidelines is going to dilute it. Not at all. No. In fact, my learned colleagues are very correct on the panel right now to say that ultimately this is about cleansing of cricket. You don't want a person.
Fair enough. Let me just get in Mr. Jung and Mr. Bimani. I'll get you in, Mr. Jung, first on, how do you see the future of, the Cricket Association, given all that we are hoping to see in terms of a cleanup, brand new management team, we'll have some people from the government overseeing this. We'll have maybe the Lodha panel will appoint somebody else to take a look at all the financial dealings. I don't know. I'm just asking you. I'm asking the question. Do you see the Indian cricketing, power that we are today continuing to remain so, or do you think we'll need some time to, come back into the game?
Oh, not at all. Listen, I don't think the cricket is going to suffer at the top. I think we are going to churn out the level of players. So over there, I'm not really worried. But listen, everything that the Supreme Court is saying is pointing towards a monopoly. For heaven's sake, when you have a monopoly in place, you've got huge collateral damage that is taking place in the system. And one of the collateral damage is non-transparency, non-answerability, and of course, huge corruption within the system. Now, in order to put this right, and so the change will come, we certainly don't need cricketers. If you actually look at the documents in front of Justice Lodha, all those state associations which have been led by cricketers of the past, there's huge corruption over there. They might even go to jail. So we certainly don't need players because we have proven over a period of time that we are not professional enough to manage such a huge operation. What we do need is a professional. Listen, the cricketer has gone from the amateur to professional. We need the administrator to do the same thing. We need a Vivek Paul. We need someone who has globally proven himself to be able and not to be corrupt, to come in, take this entire issue of the BCCI, give him clear objectives over the next 10 years, and then put Indian cricket back in order. Whilst this cleansing is happening at the administration level, Sonali, I don't think the cricketer will suffer. I don't think our cricket will suffer. I think we will churn out great cricketers.
Great. Last word for you, Mr. Bimani, as we're running out of time. I need to end this show. But last word from you on how you see the future of this organization from a business standpoint.
Sonali, I'll sum it up very briefly. That today, the change in management, the change in the whole approach to the game will mean that there'll be no more Lalit Modis, there'll be no more Srinivasans, and our vastly talented players, instead of owing allegiance to such people, will owe their allegiance to cricket. The game of cricket will become supreme as it should be. They'll not be looking over their shoulder as to how their bosses are looking. And the very talented people that they are, I think Indians are among the most talented cricketers. Why among? They are the most talented cricketers in the world, the most dedicated, the most committed. Today, that will allow it to flourish. And today, cricket will remain where it is or better in the quality of cricket. But that today, the dispensation will realize that you cannot get away with what you've been getting away with for decades.
Fair enough, fair enough. On that note, thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining me this evening. Truly wonderful to be having this discussion, a lot of new insights, and hopefully, we can all be as optimistic as four of you are, and hopefully the cricket flag in India will soar higher. Thank you so much for joining us.
That's it, beautifully struck. Find us on Facebook at facebook.com/ETNow and don't forget to click the like button. You can also follow us on Twitter at ETNowLive. To stay updated with all our programming, hit the subscribe button on our YouTube channel by logging on to youtube.com/user/ETNow.